Guys, in this video we're going to be looking at the amazing timeless book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and I'm going to show you 7 key takeaways that honestly for me has given me the ability to make multiple 6 figures in my online business and even more offline when I was a vice president of a pharmaceutical company. So yeah, the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, it's been kicking around since 1936, but do not let the age put you off. Why? Because How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is a timeless classic and really is the go-to guide for anyone wanting to increase their social capital. But actually, as entrepreneurs and business people, the advice given in there really can help, I hate to quote Grant Cardone, 10x your business. Now, there is strategic advice within Carnegie's all-time classic book, and it focuses on how to properly interact and really understand people. Let's face it, in business, if you can't understand or interact with people, then you have no chance, guys. And Carnegie really provides an insight why certain behaviors produce desired results, and he offers the tools to help you develop real positive relationships. He emphasizes that regardless of your accomplishments or knowledge, our ability to positively interact with people is what will ultimately determine your success. Okay, so that's the big claim from the book. Just know what's in it for you. The benefit is this: you'll be able to improve your relationships, have better communication skills, really be able to understand people, and in business you'll be able to really make business relationships much faster. Yeah, it's a self-help title, yeah, it's old, but these principles are timeless because it's just based on human psychology and human behavior to run through and deliver to you today to really help you in your business. Okay, so the first principle we're going to sort of dive into and look at is one which is key, especially if you're managing people, and that is praise is far more effective than criticism. Yeah, so praise is more effective than criticism. It may sound obvious, but believe me, we go about things wrong often in our interactions with humans, okay? And we're too fast to jump to criticize. And in fact, if you praise someone instead, it's far more effective in actually influencing them and getting them to do something which you want to do, okay? Now, the book gives examples of Al Pacino. It's a great story and how he discusses it, but don't worry, what we're going to do is just learn the principle and why is it important. Now think about it. The big problem is that when you criticize someone, they automatically become defensive. So I'm sure yourself, if someone comes and criticizes you, you will automatically become defensive because people honestly take it really personally, and people don't like being told that they're wrong, and that's just natural. Okay, and the other natural thing happens, the instinct from the other person is that they will then try and justify their behavior. They will become defensive, and what can be even worse is people really bear a grudge and dislike to people who criticize them. Even if the criticism may have been well-intentioned, even if you're criticizing to try and help them, just know that if you criticize someone, especially in the wrong way, they will hold a lasting grudge against you. And in business, how can you ever get to a yes if they hold a grudge against you? So Carnegie explains that the solution is, that sometimes you'll be in disagreement, okay? And you won't want to be from their side of thinking. And it's true, sometimes people need to be urged and nudged to change their ways, okay, from time to time. And that's just a fact of life. But how can we help someone if we're being well-intentioned without criticizing them? What can we do? How can we do that? And Carnegie says it's very simple, it's very straightforward, it's not complicated. It's that we praise the other person. think about it. Every person, every human being, me and you included, wants to feel like valued, important. It's really important that we feel like this. And just a few words or the right language patterns, the right body, such a fundamental principle that when you make someone feel valued, interesting, and above all important, then that is the first step of really being able to truly influence someone. But just knowing like social interactions or just in business in general, surefire way to build this bond of trust and likability, make everyone you meet feel interesting and important. So that's the second principle which I want you to take away from the book. Really important. The next one is all about encouragement. And this one has honestly made me more money than any other principle from the book. I'm not saying this is going to be the big one for you, but it was a big lesson for me. And that is encourage others to talk and listen carefully when they do. Now, the book doesn't go into this thing called active listening. Definitely cover that in another video. Active listening is so important. But just this principle alone, encouraging others to talk and listen carefully when they do, is so important. Honestly, this is one of the best life skills you can have, especially if you're in sales, okay? Now, if you can achieve this, then it will be really favorable upon you about winning a person's heart, okay? And if you're wanting this just for a social, it's very powerful. Things you can do is invite them to tell you about their lives or about their interests, and you want to listen carefully to exactly what they say, okay? So, for example, if you're meeting someone new to your friendship group, okay, so they're a stranger to you but new to the group of friends you have, try asking like open-ended questions and questions that they may really enjoy answering. And you can do this in business. So for example, the new person in the workplace, okay, ask them open-ended questions. You know, for example, you know, how are you finding the new position? Is it everything that you thought it would be? You know, what hobbies do you have? And the key is to actually pay attention. Pay attention. Don't appear to be distracted or uninterested or wondering what. You want to really show them with eye contact, with body language, that you are paying attention when others speak. And you'll be better off by doing this, okay? You don't even have to sort of encourage them to keep talking, because when people know that you're really listening, that's when the magic happens, okay? So just know this principle is very powerful. I can give you another example. In sales in particular, there's something called the 80-20 rule, and in sales, if you listen 80% of the time and only 20% of the time you actually do the talking. And in sales, it's two components: it's asking expert questions and selling, that's the other 20%. You'll do much better. So just know that by encouraging others to talk and you're listening carefully, it's such an important rule. So important. Let me speed up, guys. Number 4. If you can't avoid an argument, then disagree as gently as possible. So this is kind of a cool thing, you know. How do you actually know how you win an argument? Okay, do you win it by throwing facts and figures instantly in their face, tying them up with knots, trying to beat them with intelligence, with maths and facts and figures? Or do you try and cleverly expose them by some big logical argument you have, and expose them and make them look stupid? Okay, well, I think you both know, we all know this, okay, is that none of this is really a good idea. If you really want to win an argument like that, your opponent in the argument will actually just dislike you and resent you and not want to be around you, let alone do business with you. And you can be sure, if you try those things, facts and figures and arm twisting and exposing them with logical, crazy arguments, yeah, it's just not a good idea. They will automatically resent you, and they'll actually never really agree with you on anything. And in business, you need agreement to get to yes, to sign the contract. And if someone resents you, they're not going to want to do business with you. Business and business relationships is built on knowing someone, liking someone. And if two salespeople have exactly the same product, offer, service, same price, the only difference is they like one over the other. They will always do business with the person who they like. That's just a fact. So it's very important to avoid an argument, okay? But if you have to disagree, do it as gently as possible. Now, disagreements, if it's a full-blown argument, it's a lose-lose. Yeah, no one wins. If you can, it's best to avoid them, of course, completely. But sometimes, especially in the business world, arguments will happen, and it's inevitable. Okay, so if you find yourself in a situation where you just cannot avoid the argument, and where you really have to make your case, prove your point, and win the argument, there's a few tips that Carnegie shares that you need to have in the forefront of your mind. And this framework really works, okay? If you just come out and say you're stupid, you're wrong, your thinking's flawed, it's illogical, all that type of stuff, and making a case so bluntly to someone, this will not bring someone round to your way of thinking. Like we said earlier on in this video, it will make someone just become defensive, and they will defend their thinking. Yeah, you will not bring them round to your way of thinking. So instead, of trying this approach, you don't want them to become offensive. You don't want them to almost do anything out of their way to prove that you're wrong. Okay, but instead, use a gentle, softly approach, and a subtle approach. And this is far more likely to be effective. So rather going out there to prove all guns blazing by force, try holding the hand of the opponent, not physically but in their mind, and leading them to your conclusion in the spirit, in the way of friendly inquiry, and joining hand to hand and proving your way, but gently, little steps. And then that's the best way to do it. Is do it gently, in a friendly way of inquiry. So what you do, how can you do it? Get someone who disagrees with you to even cooperate. Well, the trick is just to acknowledge the possibility that, in fact, you might be wrong. You are the one who could be completely wrong in this argument, in this disagreement. And when you do that, it kind of diffuses the situation. And you just try something along the lines of saying, well, look, I could be wrong. There is a good possibility I'm wrong. Let's actually look at the facts together. Now, this is 9 times out of 10 enough to disarm even the most stubborn of people. Because you're being the reasonable man, the reasonable person. You're acknowledging that yourself, you could be wrong, and then all you're asking them really to do is actually go through some stuff which could prove them to be 100% right. So naturally, you could be enforcing how right they are. And people are more likely to agree with this. And the good thing about this is, if you actually turn out to be wrong, you can be 100% gracious in defeat. Because you can admit your mistake. You can say, look, I said right from the beginning I could be wrong. We've gone through the facts, and now I can own up. I can admit that I was wrong. And that now is a softly approach. Now, of course, on the flip side, if you turn out to be right, they're more likely to come around to your way of thinking, because you've not been aggressive, overbearing, forcing your ideas on someone. And when you come to the conclusion that you are in fact right, don't celebrate to their face. Don't rejoice, don't belittle them, because then problems will happen again. The person on the other side will they won't even want to adopt the new opinion, okay? But if they do, you'll make them feel embarrassed, stupid, silly. And again, that's a lose-lose situation. So again, if you can avoid argument, do it. But if you need to disagree, do it tactfully and gently. And just do it as carefully as possible. As carefully as possible. Right, the fifth principle in the book is a good one. Again, I mean, they're all great, but this one is to get others to agree with you right from the start, and then gently lead them to your conclusions. Now, Dale Carnegie draws upon Socrates. Okay, now Socrates is, of course, the great philosopher, and if anyone really understood this thing called persuasion, it's Socrates. He was like the master. He really understood the fine art of persuasion. And he really Socrates understood that by asking the right questions in the right way, he could convince people to affirm things they never believed in before. And that's a real skill. How did he do it? Well, he made sure that he got them in this affirmative mindset, the mindset of agreement, through micro agreements. That means that he got them into the habit of saying yes. And how did he do that? First, he entered in conversations by making assertions that you couldn't just disagree with. You had to agree with them. Universal truth. So whatever industry you work in or whatever it may be, if you find something where someone has 100% common ground with you, yeah, and they of course they would agree with you, because it'd be impossible not to. If you did this and you got them into a conversation where they were agreeing with you, then bit by bit, what he would do then, he would shift the conversation into a more outlandish territory, more dubious territory where they were likely to really not agree, okay? And by foregoing the points everyone could agree on, he made his audience, the people he spoke to, more likely to accept the things that followed, even if they, like I said, were things that they would never thought they would believe in the first place. What can you learn from this? Yeah, well, a lot, of course. Socrates' style and his art of persuasion is worth studying, because if you can get someone agreeing with you from the very beginning, then you're halfway to convincing them that you're right. And that is a great way of going about influencing people. Okay? And if you can get them to have micro agreements, the universal truths, and get them on a subconsciously level to understand where you're coming from, that's really powerful. So if you're trying to convince someone, when you go into that, do what Socrates did. Get them to agree with universal things, okay? Build that into sales pitches, conversations, whatever it may be. Because people, once they kind of get used to agreeing with you, it's strange. Subconsciously, they will keep agreeing with you. And again, Dale Carnegie in the book goes through some wonderful examples. But just know, if you can nudge them in the right direction right from the beginning, more often that will help others to arrive at your conclusions. It's so powerful. Get someone in an affirmative state of mind first, but asking questions that nudge them in the right direction can really help you. So yeah, powerful principle. Get others to agree with you from the very start, and then gently lead them to your own conclusions. Great principle. So that's number 5. Principle number 6. Okay, number 6 is you should always try to see the other person's viewpoint. Yeah? Try to understand other people's viewpoints. This is one that will serve you very, very well. Very well. Because when you can really understand someone else's point of view, it helps you to persuade people. I mean, after all, people have different belief systems, different values, they've had different life experiences, and if you don't do that, then you can create tension. So if you understand someone's viewpoint, it is mutually beneficial. Yeah, it's always beneficial to really see things from someone else's perspective. Not only can it really help to resolve very tricky situations, but it can win people's favour and generate a great deal of goodwill. Yeah, and believe it or not, it can help you really to manage frustration and impatience just by understanding the other factors that make up how people act, how they think, what they do, what they say. You can honestly become more tolerant of behaviours that may have once irritated you or upset you. So next time, if someone's behaviour is upsetting you, distressing you, annoying you, stop just for 1 minute. Try to see things from the other person's point of view. Yeah? And if you can really understand, that will help you get there. Especially, as Dale Carnegie says, if you can extend sympathy, which is not an easy thing to do, but if you can sympathise with them and really sympathise with them, then that's normally a better way than actually just getting angry with someone. Okay? People will really appreciate sympathy. And tensions arise and tempers begin when you don't use sympathy. And if you just use a sympathetic phrase, you can avoid arguments. And you can say things, like, I completely understand where you're coming from. In your situation, I feel exactly the same. And that is sympathising with someone. And just saying those things really can help win someone's favour, generate a lot of goodwill, and it's beneficial. In the book, gives some great examples, okay? Gives some fantastic examples, but just know, you should always in life try and understand someone else's viewpoints, because they will have different values, limiting beliefs, they've been brought up in a particular way different from you. When you understand someone else's viewpoints, life becomes much easier. We're going to dive into the final point now, and that is set the bar high, and people will really strive to meet where you set that bar. So if you're like a manager of a team, this is amazing tips for you here. Now, if you have this high reputation to live up to, okay, you'll find that others will want to try and develop the same. So the key rule is this: if you want someone to develop a certain characteristic, speak of them as although they actually already possess it. Okay, so for example, if you want your child to be more generous, praise them when they start sharing with others. Okay, simple as that. It's as simple as that. And if you set this really high bar, you'll find that people will always try to do it. So in business, if you praise people for attempting to hit that bar, and they know that you really appreciate the effort they put in, the work they've put in, this is far more generous than, again, criticising them, like we spoke about before. And if you do this like in their monthly or weekly meetings, you'll know that they're trying at least as hard as they did that month again in the future. And if you can turn it into a habit, okay, you just can use it with other tips as well. It's really, really powerful. It's really powerful. So if you have this high bar you set for something, others just know will try and strive, and if they don't even hit it, but you praise them for trying to reach this really high standard, this really high bar, yeah, they will keep trying to do it again and again and again, even if they don't hit it. So just set the bar high, okay? So let's pull all this together, okay? If you want to be really influential in life, it's important to really understand the perspectives of those around you. Yeah, the big takeaway for me from the book is human beings, you and me, everyone, really wants to be understood, listened to, and be made to feel important. And honestly, if you can do these things, then your social interactions, your business interactions will always be more productive, and you'll find that it will really happen more often. So this is just a quick jump into the book Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. These are just like 7 things that I've taken away from the book. I'll do other videos for sure on the book How to Win and Influence People. It's not a big book, but there's so many key things to take away. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like, comment and subscribe. I'll be doing other books from Dale Carnegie, and loads of other books that will help you really become like an amazing entrepreneur, business person, and just better in life in general. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe.